Sorry I've been gone for so long. Shortly after my high school reunion, I went out to California to do some silver mining. Fell down the shaft, busted my ankle, had to crawl back all the way to Chicago. Whew. Anyway, now that I'm here, I gotta go see Rogue One. Let's go! This is a special movie-going day for me. I am going all the way up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin to see this movie. I have this friend, Jack. He used to live here, but he moved up to Milwaukee, so whenever we hang out, he drives all the way down here, or I go up there. And it's my turn to go up there, and this is good because I enjoy seeing a big movie that I've been anticipating in a theater that I've never been to before. And as it happens, I have not been to see a single movie in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And that's going to change today. So right now, I'm walking north from the house where I live to catch a bus. It was freezing cold here in Chicago a few days ago. And it snowed some yesterday, but the temperature is not so bad right now. I'm on Dempster. Waiting on that bus. It's going to take me west. And from there, I will be getting off at an intersection called Harlem and Dempster, whereby I'll be taking a taxi north to the train station. Cab just dropped me off. I'm at the station. Gonna head north in that direction. I'm in Glenview right now. I had a little bit of a tense moment there when I got a call saying the cab would be 5 minutes late, and I allowed 15 minutes to get to the station, and yeah. But here on time, waiting on the train, looking good. Train is kicking up a heck of a lot of snow. Only time I've ever taken Amtrak before was when I was going to St. Louis. It is way more expensive than the Metro, but the Metro doesn't go all the way to Milwaukee, so here I am. Hi there. How late is this ticket booth open today?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, thanks. Hey. How are you? We are on the expressway heading to the movie theater. Jack, say hello to everybody on YouTube.
Hi, everybody on YouTube, hello. This is our Majestic Milwaukee Theater in the suburbs of Milwaukee.
That's what it's called, the Majestic?
Yeah.
Is it part of a chain?
Yeah, Marcus owns almost all the Wisconsin theaters.
Okay, yeah, haven't been to one of those. This is Andrea's Red Rooster. We've come here for lunch. It's basically just down the street from the theater. And we're going to have some drinks and some food, and we've got about 2.5 hours before the movie starts, so we've got plenty of time to chill. The food's not up on you.
Do you need anything else anymore?
The Marcus Majestic Cinema. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be enthusiastic. As I record this, it's Christmas Eve, and I'm planning on posting this not only on my own Facebook page, but also a Facebook page that's a Star Wars fan group that I became a part of last year. The criteria was no spoilers, no post with spoilers until after Christmas. So since this is full of spoilers, or has a lot of them anyway, I've waited until now to do my actual review. That stuff that you just saw was all shot 1 week ago today, or 1 week from the day that I shot this anyway, which was the 17th? Right, 17th. I traveled up to Milwaukee, where my friend Jack lives. We went to this theater in the Marcus chain. I'd never been to a Marcus theater before. The auditorium was fantastic, something they called Ultra Screen. They had 2 theaters that are called Ultra Screen, and the rest are just regular multiplex theaters, I guess. Big screen. Big auditorium, big screen stretched from one wall all the way to the other one. Fantastic. You know, I mean, these days a lot of theaters don't seem to, you know, really take advantage of that width. And if they do, basically, it doesn't make the widescreen movies any wider than regular movies because they just move the shutters up and down to accommodate the different aspect ratios, whereas this one's like, yeah, big. And we sat pretty close to the front, too. Not in the section directly in front of the theater, but amongst the stadium-style seats. We were in that that first row, and so everything was just way more epic than it normally would be if I sat, you know, towards the back. So yeah, I enjoyed a lot about this movie, especially the action and the visual effects. I tell you, I was not expecting the movie to be this epic. I knew what the premise of the movie was, and the fact that they were going to seal the plans for the Death Star, and that was the whole idea behind it. And like, okay, well, they're obviously going to be successful because this movie, you know, will lead into A New Hope. But I didn't know how close it would come to the events of the first Star Wars movie. Really, it seems like there's only like maybe a gap of like maybe 10 minutes between the events of one movie and the events of the other. Having said that, though, I don't necessarily think that it's a great idea to watch Rogue One right before A New Hope, unless you're already, you know, used to A New Hope. If you're a Star Wars newbie, and most of the people watching this video are probably not Star Wars newbies. But if there was a person who hadn't seen any Star Wars movies before, maybe seeing Rogue One right before A New Hope is not that great of an idea, simply because the climax of A New Hope probably will seem kind of underwhelming compared to that of Rogue One. Like I said, I was expecting this to be a sort of a smaller scale movie, and it definitely wasn't. But then again, I don't know why I would think this, because this is, you know, a huge franchise, and they want these movies to be as big and as amazing and spectacular as possible, so they're not going to hold back on the climax of a movie like this just so that it doesn't cast the original film in a shadow or something like that as far as the epic nature of it. I think that the closing of Return of the Jedi is a huge, massive climax that's maybe, just in terms of scale, bigger than the ending for a Rogue One, from a Rogue One, and maybe the opening battle sequence in Revenge of the Sith, and maybe the Phantom Menace as well. But that's, you know, I mean, there's a lot going on in there, but the scale of it doesn't seem as big as far as the space battle goes, whereas this is just like, you know, you've got Star Destroyers crashing into each other. That was spectacular. Seeing the Star Destroyers just, you know, lay waste to each other by crashing into each other. That was pretty exciting. So yeah, plenty of spoilers as far as the story goes in this one. I don't think I need to recap the story, so I'll just get into the whole kind of idea of us seeing everything that happens right up until A New Hope seems kind of unnecessary. When you have the dialogue with Vader and Leia at the beginning of A New Hope, where they talk about how, several transmissions were beamed to the ship by rebel spies. I want to know what happened to the plans, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. When you look at it from the perspective of Leia, where she's like on the ship at the end of the movie, basically, right there in the midst of the battle. First of all, why is she there? Why is she there participating in the battle? I know she's like important to the rebellion because she probably funnels a lot of money their way and resources and maybe helps them get ships and weapons and things like that. But it just seems a bit forced. I think she's there simply because people who love Star Wars would want to see her there. Just as they want to see Vader kicking ass in that one scene where he boards the rebel ship. And believe me, that was a really, really fun scene. I enjoyed it just as much as anyone. But I also recognize that the reason why that scene is there is to give Star Wars fans something that they would just go crazy over. And they certainly did. It reminds me of actually the scene in Attack of the Clones. First of all, it reminds me of the scene from The Terminator when Arnold Schwarzenegger walks into the police station and just mows everybody down, Arnold Schwarzenegger's the bad guy in that movie, and Vader's the bad guy in this movie, but still, you can't help but get a little excited by seeing Vader just go to town, just lay waste to a whole bunch of people, like Arnold does in the first Terminator movie. The other scene it really reminded me of is Yoda's big scene in Attack of the Clones. People went crazy over that scene as well. It was the most talked about scene in the entire movie. The fact that Yoda walks into a room, pulls out a lightsaber, which we'd never seen him do before, and goes to town on Dooku. And that's kind of what happens with Vader in this scene. And I think that the guys that made this film, producers, writers, whomever, studio executives, Lucasfilm executives, whomever, were like, hey, you know what? That scene with Yoda in Attack of the Clones, people really dug that. We should do that with Vader. We should have a scene like that, where we really get to see Vader, strut his stuff as far as the Force goes and knocking off good guys. So yeah, really, really great scene, really effective scene. Kind of scary, I think it really gets sold well by that one rebel guy who's got the disc with the Death Star plans, trying to get it through the gap in the door because he can't get through the door. He's like, take it, we're all about to get killed in here. That was really great. But again, it just seems kind of, when I stand back and look at it after the movie's over, and I see, the guys run to the other ship, the Tantive ship, which then breaks away from the pack and flies off, and then the one guy hands it to Leia, I'm just like, okay, I see where they're going with this, but really is this kind of, how it really would have played out for real? I mean, granted, I'm going on my assumption of things that I saw way back in the day, but it just seemed like Vader got some intelligence from someone that the ship basically had received the transmission and caught up with it, rather than following it from a battle, because Leia in A New Hope kind of goes, I wasn't even, this is something that the guys from CineFix brought up. I got links to a couple of roundtable, in-depth spoiler reviews in the description on this video. One's from Red Letter Media, the other is from a channel called CineFix, where they talk about how kind of ridiculous it is to think that Leia would lie about where she came from. She's on a diplomatic mission when she just came from that battle, and Vader, followed in the Star Destroyer and everything like that. It's like, did he know that the transmission got beamed to that particular ship where there's a whole ton of rebel ships all over the place? Granted, a lot of them got destroyed, and a whole bunch of them just like smacked straight into Vader's Star Destroyer when it showed up. But it just seems kind of silly to think that she thought she could get away with a lie like that when she had just come from the battle and he only just caught up to her just a few minutes later. It's just like, oh no, we're on a diplomatic mission. I'm like, give me a break, seriously. And the reason, but that dialogue, it's not like they could change that dialogue in A New Hope, nor would they want to, So yeah, I mean, it's fun in the moment, it's exciting in the moment, but when I sort of stand back and look at it after it's over, I go, yeah, I don't know, it really doesn't make sense. I mean, it's a very crowd-pleasing sequence, and I think that's probably one of the things that's important to the people that made the movie and the people that are expecting big money from the box office. And they, of course, got big money from the box office. Congratulations to Kathleen Kennedy and all the people at Lucasfilm for making a ton of money off of this movie, which is supposed to be like not an official episode of Star Wars, but just sort of an in-between thing. You know, I mean, you know, I can't wait to see what they do with the Han Solo movie, because you know, Han Solo, no doubt, is going to get involved in some huge, incredible space battle or something like that at the end. It's not going to be a small-scale movie, because this was, you know, sort of sold as a small-scale movie, I guess. But it's really hard to read what the intentions are around this kind of right now. I sort of have a hard time believing that any Star Wars movie that they make is not going to have some huge space battle in it or some huge epic sequences of some kind. That's just set in the Star Wars world. It just has to have something really, really, really huge happen in order to sort of justify all the anticipation around it, you know? So the fact that we're going to see one of these Star Wars movies, a new Star Wars movie, every single year for as long as Disney and Lucasfilm are still functioning companies, means that they really, you know, I don't know that they're going to hold back on any of them. So anyway, that's that. Let's get into what this movie is really supposed to be about, which is about a group of people stealing the plans for the Death Star and getting to the rebels. I'm of the opinion that you can judge the attitude that the makers of a film has by the way they, towards the story, towards the characters, by the way they make the film itself. For example, there's a movie called The Impossible, which came out a couple years ago. Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts starred it. Their parents, who are on vacation, and then the incredible tsunami hits where they're vacationing, and they are separated, and they have to try and find each other. This is a movie that's based on a true story, but they made some pretty significant changes. First of all, they changed the family themselves from Spanish to British. Who knows why? It's not like they couldn't find any, you know, actors who are Spanish, you know, to play the parts with speaking English with Spanish accents. No, they had to make them Brits for some reason, just to make them more palatable for American audiences. I don't know. I really don't know. But the other thing is that they really sort of played up the misery to a great degree. This is, of course, like I said, based on true stories, real people, something that really happened to them. But there are moments in that movie which really seem focused on just how much pain and suffering they're going through. One shot in particular has Naomi Watts being dragged through this sort of devastated area. She can't walk, her leg is injured very badly, and she's constantly, you know, grunting and moaning in pain. And there's a shot which basically is like a highlight reel of her biggest moans. You know, they couldn't just have one shot of her and a couple of moans. It was just like they strung a couple of her biggest moans together. And I went, man, these guys don't care about these people. They just want to show as much suffering as possible. And so I immediately started to dislike the movie at this point. Now, the reason why I bring it up is because in the end of Rogue One, after they transmitted the plans to the ship, the main characters, played by Felicity Jones and Diego Luna, see that the Death Star has blasted at them to try and stop them. A little bit too late, but they see the blast wave coming. They're standing on the beach, and they see the blast wave heading towards them, and they know that this is the end for them. But the movie, the people that made the movie, don't let them just have this moment. They cut away before the blast wave hits to something else happening. The Empire is doing something. I think maybe Vader's giving an order. I only saw the movie the one time, so I don't remember exactly what happens. But they cut away for a moment, and then they cut back to them, and the blast wave is still approaching, and they hold each other, and then, boom, that's it, that's the end. I'm just like, why couldn't they have had that moment? They're supposed to be the main characters of the movie. We're supposed to be with them for the whole thing, and there's this big moment where they see that they're about to die, and yet they go away to something else and come back to them. It just, you know, leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It's just like, maybe the people that made this movie really don't care about these people because none of them are going to show up in the next movie. I like the fact that they all got killed while they were trying to complete the mission. That's unusual and kind of ballsy, and totally justifiable, seeing as how none of those characters are in any of the original trilogy movies. They're not even referred to, really. I mean, they mention them, you know, rebel spies. That's just about all of the attention that they get in the original trilogy. So it seems like the story in itself, when Lucas made the first film, that story was just something that happened that informs what's happening now, but is relatively unimportant. And it just seems like the people that made the movie, in the end, thought that they were unimportant as well. Maybe not all that important in the grand scheme of things, because what do Star Wars fans really want? Oh, they want the Star Destroyers. They want to see Vader going to town. They want to see Leia and Tarkin and the Death Star and all that stuff. And these guys who did this thing, yeah, they're our main characters, but we can kind of forget about them now. And yeah, I'm not really crazy about that. I mean, they're fictional characters, obviously, so it's not like you need to show compassion towards them. But, you know, then again, it's like, if you're not going to feel compassion about the characters that you're making a story about, why make the story in the first place? Money, maybe? Yeah. Felicity Jones is an actor who I haven't seen in a lot of stuff. She's fine. She didn't make a great impression on me when I saw this movie, and I don't blame her for that. It's the writing, and it's the attention, obviously, that's paid to, you know, the focus on the movie is somewhere other than her, really. She's on screen more than most of the other characters, but really, I think for me, the only moment that really struck a chord with me is when she saw the recording that her father made. Father is played by Mads Mikkelsen. Excuse me, Mads Mikkelsen. And he is one of the guys helping to construct the Death Star, and he sends her this message, or he sends a message, which starts out as something saying, I need you to possibly, if you possibly can, whoever gets this message, to show it to my daughter, find my daughter Jyn Erso and show it to her. And then he starts speaking to her directly, and she just can't hold it anymore. She gets really emotional. And that was a great moment, I felt. Because, yeah, you know, no matter how tough this girl is, no matter what she's been through and how she's sort of steeled herself against the universe and all the bad things that can throw her way, here's her dad, who she hasn't seen or heard from in 15 years, and now he's talking directly to her. And yeah, she kind of loses it at that point, and I'm like, hey, that was a great moment. It was a really, really nice moment, and I wish there had been more of that. Because I didn't feel an emotional connection to her the way I, you know, should have for a story like this. Diego Luna's character is kind of interesting. He's a rebel pilot, but he's not above doing bad things to people in order to get what he needs. In the very first scene of the movie, his very first scene in the movie, he meets this guy who's giving him some information. And this guy, basically, they get discovered by stormtroopers, they need to get out of there, and he's obviously worried about the fact this guy, if he gets caught by the stormtroopers, will provide information about the rebellion to them, so he just kills them. You know, not a nice choice, but probably the smart one, if you're concerned about the health of the rebellion. Related to that, you've of course all read about the fact that they did a lot of reshoots on this movie, which happens a lot on big budget movies. But I think a big clue as to what exactly was reshot can be found in Forrest Whitaker's hair. If you remember the first teaser, his hair is cropped pretty close. You know, I mean, he's pretty much bald. And it seems like his scenes were reshot, basically, much later on, after he'd grown his hair for another movie, or they needed to put a wig on him, or for some reason they couldn't have him have that short hair again. You know, so they gave him a whole new hairstyle. So it looks like those scenes were reshot. And one thing that the Red Letter Media guys pointed out about his character is that he is against the Empire, but he's not with the Rebellion because the Rebellion doesn't like his tactics or something like that. My theory is that the Diego Luna character killed him in the original version of the story. I'm not really sure the reason exactly why. Maybe he was under orders from the people, the Rebellion, to take him out as soon as they got whatever information they needed from him, or when they acquired the pilots, the Imperial pilot that defected, the one played by Riz Ahmed. But that doesn't happen in the new version of the movie. Instead, when the Death Star hits that city, that they are close to, and the blast wave starts coming for them, he just stands there and says, I'm through running, I'm through fighting, I'm just going to let the Empire kill me. And the Red Letter Media guys in their video said that seems pretty out of character for him. I think the reason why that happened is because originally Diego Luna, in the original version of the story, Diego Luna killed that guy, and then they made their getaway before they got sucked up by the blast wave. But they didn't want Diego Luna's character to be more unsympathetic, so they reshot that, but they needed Forrest Whitaker's character to die anyway because he doesn't, you know, play a role in what happens in the rest of the film. So they staged a scene where basically he sees destruction coming and he just says, okay, I'm done, you know, and it's not like him to give up like that. Now, you know, I can sort of see the original intent of this is that Diego Luna, in the beginning, he kills a guy, and then he kills another guy, he kills Forrest Whitaker, but when it comes to, when he gets Mads Mikkelsen, Felicity Jones' father, in his sights, he decides not to kill him instead, as a contrast to his earlier decisions, because of what Felicity Jones has told him about the recording, and about the fact that her father really isn't on the Imperial side, and that he has put a fly in their ointment by deliberately engineering this flaw into the Death Star, which they might be able to exploit. A lot of people in the rebellion have trouble believing her because they don't have the recording. She didn't take it before the whole place got blown sky high. They only have her word to go on. But he puts his trust in her and says, you know what, I'm going to take her word for it on this. You know, I am going to, you know, not kill this guy because there's a possibility that she's telling the truth and he is actually on our side, and so he doesn't deserve to get killed by me. So there'd be this progression here. By the way, he, you know, kills this guy because he needs to, and then he kills this other guy because he's been told to, and then this other guy has been ordered to kill, but he decides not to because he's trusting Felicity Jones instead. And I think they just made that change because they thought he was too unsympathetic if he killed Forrest Whitaker, and that's why, you know, all that stuff was reshot, and why his hair looks different from it does in the teaser. That's my theory anyway. Let's see what else. There's a lot of supporting characters to talk about, and some of them really stand out, like the Donnie Yen character, the blind guy who's very much has a lot of faith in the Force, and he has some great scenes. And Alan Tudyk, who, if you're not aware, also did another robot character in the Will Smith movie I, Robot. He did the voice and performance for Sonny, the main robot character in I, Robot. He has lots of great moments. Alan Tudyk, of course, I know from the Joss Whedon stuff that he's done, Firefly and Serenity and Dollhouse. Yeah, that was really cool. So yeah, he has lots of great moments, and the other characters, Riz Ahmed, he's a good actor. I really don't know if I've seen him in anything else. I liked him a lot in this movie. Donnie Yen's companion, I don't know the name of the actor that plays basically his sniper buddy. Yeah, they seem like a really good team, and it would have been nice to see more of them. But again, it just seems like whatever time they spent on these main characters, the ones that we stick with for most of the movie, in the end, they just, I just get the impression that the people that made the movie consider them not as important as just making sure that we got to the point where they steal the Death Star plans, that we show that happening, and we show them getting to the Tantive with Princess Leia and R2 and 3PO on board so they can get away and we can lead right into the next movie. Oh, and don't forget about Vader. We have to have, you know, some cool Vader stuff in there as well. I wasn't particularly bothered by the fact that you used basically a CGI version of young Carrie Fisher and a CGI version of Peter Cushing for those characters. I felt like Leia wasn't in it all that much, and maybe they could have skipped that part because she's there in the end. So we see her actually getting handed the plans, which seems a little bit unnecessary. But Tarkin, I thought, was an appropriate choice. Yeah, they could have cast a different actor in the part, or maybe just kept his face off screen or something like that. But I think it was important to have that character there to show just how important he is in the Empire and to the story itself. So I didn't mind it. A lot of people are bothered by the CGI character, but hey, I see CGI characters in movies all the time now, you know, and it really doesn't bother me. I mean, special effects that look like special effects don't bother me as much as they bother a lot of people. You know, people complain about how CGI doesn't look real, but then again, neither does stop motion. Stop motion really doesn't look real. Most special effects don't look real, but it doesn't bother me because, you know, it's part of the story. I don't, it just doesn't. I'm used to it. The music, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to. Like I said, I've only seen this movie one time, so I didn't really notice it all that much, except for the scene in which Felicity Jones finally gets to see her father in person at that Imperial base. At that point, the music sort of stuck out as being a little obtrusive. Yeah, aside from that, I really didn't notice. But yeah, I liked the space battles. I liked a lot of the combat sequences. The whole sequence involving them getting to the Imperial base on the planet to find the Death Star plans and then get them out of there, get them safe. Nice, tense sequence. Really exciting. Great effects. Love seeing the AT-ATs. I noticed that in the earlier part of the movie on the other planet, they have the two-legged walkers walking around, the ones from Return of the Jedi, and those looked a little stop motion-y. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but they looked a little bit like the jerky stop motion movement. I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, seeing the AT-ATs was great. And also the Star Destroyers, crashing into each other. That was really lots of fun. So yeah, there was a lot of fun to be had in this movie, but a lot of stuff also that I just kind of went, why do they do that? Maybe money, huh? So I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I have to say that all of the original trilogy movies I like more than this one. But I have only seen it one time. Maybe it will grow on me with subsequent viewings. I think I've pretty much touched on everything. So thanks very much for watching. If you have come here from the Facebook Star Wars fan group that I'm a part of, thanks very much for doing so. I hope you enjoy this. And maybe if you want to see a couple of other videos that I put up, I wouldn't mind. And I've been away from this channel for a little while, and I'll talk about that maybe in a future video. Yeah, we're nearing the end of the year, so there are lots of stuff to do before wrapping up, I guess. Anyway, sorry I'm rambling a bit. Thanks very much for watching. I'll talk to you again real soon. Take it easy.